When we look at the world around us, we see forms, shapes, texture, and color. Of all of these elements, it is color that has strongest visual impact. For instance, if we see white, we visualize snow-covered winter, pure and clean, but also cold and icy. When we see blue, we associate it with sky or the ocean, and immediately we sense distance, vast space, openness, and also a sense of quiet and peacefulness. Today we're joined by interior designer and color consultant Edy Rose. She's going to talk to us about what color is made of. Edy, how are you?
I'm fine, Alie, thank you.
What is color, Edy, and how is it formed?
Well, color is energy. It's actually light that we see, and we see it in many different colors of the rainbow. And we receive it with receptors in our eyes that show us red, that show us orange, yellow, green, blue.
I have heard about primary colors and secondary colors. What are they?
Primary colors would be a beautiful red. We would have a yellow, and we would have a wonderful blue. And these would be our primary colors.
So what are the secondary colors?
Secondary colors are when we mix two of these together. So if we mixed a yellow and a blue, they would create a green. And if we mixed a red and a blue, we would create a third color, which would be the beautiful violet. And that's how we get our secondary colors, by mixing colors. So they are called primary and secondary because they are a second generation. And this is kind of a wonderful chart that has all of the colors, what we call the color wheel. And the color wheel actually says what we just did, only it says it visually in a form of a wheel that artists use, designers use. Actually, as we said before, here's the red, here's the blue, and here's the yellow, which are our primaries. And as we said, from those, the red and blue create the secondary, the violet. We have the blue and the yellow creating the green, and we have the yellow and the red creating the orange, our secondary, or second generation, we can call them. And then our tertiary, or our next colors, would be the ones that are closest to each other. We would have the blue and the green creating another color, which is called the turquoise. And so on and so forth. We would keep going with the yellow and the orange, and we would create a coral, which would be a third color or third generation of color. And we would again do the violet, and we would do kind of a coral or an orangey, red-orange, and we could create a pink or a magenta. And that would be our entire wheel.
So you mean you can combine them and create unlimited shades of colors?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Out of these hundreds of thousands of shades, how do we begin to understand and utilize them?
Well, we begin to realize that when we have a primary, we have a primary red with what we call a secondary, when we have a red and a green, we create a contrast. When we go from one place on the color wheel across it, we call it complementary. These colors set up a lot of contrast. So if we wanted to create contrast in an environment, this is a strong contrast that we could create that way. If we wanted to do the same with a primary blue, we would go across the color wheel to its exact opposite, to the orange, the secondary color, and we would create a very large contrast, if that's the effect that we want. If not, we would want to stay next to each other on the color wheel, like when we would have a nice blue, a turquoise, a green, colors that blend or mute together more easily. There isn't so much contrast. It's a little easier on the eye. And kind of what we call an analogous color range.
Does color remain constant? For instance, a red color next to a green, would it look the same as red next to a yellow or black?
If we have a red next to a green, we would have equal intensity and the colors would definitely remain the same. But if we put a red next to a yellow, we would create a very, very different effect. Here, we would have the colors not remaining the same. So absolutely, the color that is next to another color creates a totally different dynamic.
Could you show us some examples of how colors affect each other?
You can see with these two colors what starts to happen is we get a cool feeling. So the violet next to the blue creates a feeling of coolness. It would do that in an environment or in clothing if you're wearing it. Whereas if we put the yellow with an orange, we would create a very different feeling. We would create a feeling of warmth in an environment or in clothing that you're wearing. So certainly colors that would be next to each other would certainly change, as you can see, from cool to warm or give different effects.
Do colors have characteristics that are considered cool or warm or neutral?
Neutral colors would be, we almost consider them like earth colors in a way. We would use the beiges, we would use yellows can even be considered neutral if they're very soft. Not like a yellow like this wouldn't be very neutral. This would be far more primary. We would consider terracottas, neutrals, browns, siennas, all of those would be neutrals that we could work with. And even blacks too sometimes. In a room like you were talking about before, if you wanted to keep it very, very, you know, kind of soft and easy, if people are working in a space where it's a hectic environment, they want to come home to a quieter space, maybe they would want neutrals, and that would give them a feeling of relaxation and calm. But if they wanted to come into a space where they had some more energy, let's say they didn't get it in their work environment, they could then use colors that are far more vibrant, like we said, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, the warmer colors.
This is fascinating, Edy. Now that we have gained little insight into the theory of color, we can better select the colors we choose to use around us. And also by paying closer attention to the relationship between colors, we can utilize color to end up with the expected result.